So here we are, my friends. We have right here is our tomatoes. Here are our apples, my friend Scott and Platinum Mimi. And here we have our rice pudding. And this together will be our beautiful breakfast. It's always a pleasure to see all of you. Don't you know that white man can jump? White man can jump. So, let us enjoy. Let me show you one more view of it. This is our beautiful breakfast. You're gonna have to scope having some rice pudding. This is great, huh? Enjoying life while we before we begin our psychiatrist report for the biggest case ever that will probably change some Australian laws. So the number one critique of the book, which is really funny because my own mother said this. It's a shame she didn't read the whole book because she would have been the best critic. But the number one critique of the book is that it's hard to put together the timeline. And that's mostly because I don't show my working a lot. That's a big problem. I tend to think way too quickly and not show my working because I'm not aware of what other people think and don't think. So I'll give you an example. The author, my chocolate cake instead of rice pudding. Oh, there you go. That's time is relative. Time is relative. But it's good, it's good. That's why I created the new Facebook page. I sent you all a video. Ooh, looking forward to that one. White man can't jump. Love that song. Anyway. Man, the 80s. 80s and 90s, good times. Anywho, I'm just going to have this tomato. I'm going to stuff it in my face. And I'm going to... That was really good. Alright. So, what was it? Oh, I lost what I was going to say now. Anyway, so someone sent me on YouTube, they said that they have a child who runs around and runs right on the street and they're afraid that they might kill themselves. Critique, yes, that's right, thank you. There you go. Clearly the book was written by someone who doesn't focus very well. Yes, I got to talk about this person. I think her name was Tiffany P-Tack or something on YouTube, so I'm going to have to answer her comments. And now we've got some rice pudding, my friends. Right here. Electronic things. I love that. So it's sprinkled with cinnamon and pistachio. Yeah, it's quite delish. Yeah, so basically the author of the book, which I thought everyone knew this. Now last night for like 2 hours, for 2 hours last night, some of my like top people I had this group called the Fun Group, which is, anyway, it's a hilarious group. Anyway, so it turns out that no one knew. Everyone had the wrong idea on who the author was. So let me just clarify, because I thought everyone knew, because this is my ridiculous nature that I just assume everyone knows what I know. And I don't know what I don't know. So what happened was, Adrienne is telling the story of Jamil. But she's telling the story of Jamil to me as the ghostwriter. I am ghostwriting her story. So I'm the author. But Jamil is me. So I am ghostwriting her story about me, if that makes any sense. And that's what makes it a bit confusing. Now her name is on the front because it was her story about me, but I'm the ghostwriter. So it's like she's sandwiched in between two me's. Now I have no idea if anyone actually knew that or not, but I thought everyone knew that until yesterday. This rice pudding is just too good. So anyway, so I've created this page and it's called Real Speaking Human at Facebook. And what happens is there's a lot of this stuff. So for example, someone asked me, I thought Jamil was a virgin, but then all of a sudden he had a girlfriend and then she left him, and then her best friend ended up going out with Jamil. And I explained that Jamil never consummated either of those relationships. So he remained a virgin even after those two girls were done with him, I guess, if you want to put it that way. So things like that, which I thought were obvious, Slim Grady, were actually apparently not obvious. So I'm adding all of these gap fillers, if that makes any sense, to critique my own work, because the second book has to become amazing, right? If the first book is now good, right, the story is great, the writing is great, but the timeline is a bit jagged, right? I want to fix that because I'm determined. Next book, people have to read it and go, oh my god. Perfect, it's not, for I am. I can actually listen. That's good. And I've realized that the Gabsmack project, did anyone proofread or edit it? Oh yeah. There was a lot of proofreading, like, and the 5 people that read it were obsessed with the book, but it turns out that because they'd read it so many times, they'd asked me these questions. So it's sort of like, it's like a movie that I've over edited. So I've cut out little bits in the movie that sort of help explain the whole movie. So I thought I'll just fill them back in on the Facebook page. Just Simon. This rice pudding is as good as it looks. It is just freaking awesome. I want every last little bit. It's good they want more, yeah. So it's good. So someone else said the same thing. Actually, my brother said to me, he said, what you'll find is your book. Is this a new channel banned? No, touch wood, no banning, and yes, it's a new channel. Yeah. How old is this channel now? It's probably like a month or a bit old. I should tell everyone. But see, what happens is that with Gabsmacked, right, the topics, as the crowd gets bigger, I only put the hot topics on Gabsmacked. But these topics are as hot, but they're hot for people like us who know each other. So, like, people who are new don't know what we're talking about, so it's like they're left out of the conversation. So this is more like a, what do you call it, like an elite party or something. I don't know. Anyway, let's start having some of our beautiful Moroccan coffee. Ooh, that sounds exotic. So, continuing saga. That is correct, my friend. So the other interesting point, that sounds very exciting. It is. So yeah, I'm excited. The second book's going to be even crazier. I'm very excited about that. But the first one, no, I'm doing 500,000 copies first. But I have no problem, like because I've got some interviews with some radio heads coming up in the next couple of months and stuff, and in libraries and giving talks. So I will mention that because I want to be straight up with people. Like, it's not a book that like everything is explained to you. You do have to connect some of the dots, and that takes a bit of mental effort, and that's not necessarily fun for every person, right? And I was saying, yeah, my brother was saying to me that you have to have. He said to me, Gabby, your problem is that, you know, your brain works too fast for everyone, and you assume everyone knows what you're talking about. And he says it in his way, like, yeah, bro, you assume everyone knows what you're talking about. No, I don't think so. I love it. When I call my brother, you know, he picks up the phone. Hello. Hey, brother, how you going? I'm all right, how are you? What's happening? Nothing much. What's happening with you? He doesn't ask me. Nothing much. How about you? How about you? Yeah, I'm all right, how are you? I'm all right. Ah, he's too funny. I think that he would actually be successful on his own scopes too. He's like the exact reverse of me. He's like a full-blown conservative. Like not even like Trump-style conservative, like conservative, right? The exact opposite. We've had the craziest fights. Your brother as well. That's hilarious. What is it? Let me guess. Is your brother close in age to you? You are yin and yang. That is so funny. My brother is only 2 years younger. Oh, you're twins. I heard this from Christopher Hitchens with his brother. Yours are all liberals. They were saying that if you're too close to your brother in age, then they normally become your competitor. I thought it was hilarious. I was listening last night to this doctor. I think his name's Dr. Reeves, and he's an expert in how people who believed in faith throughout medieval Europe, how they lived, how they worked, the dynamics between East and West, the fracturing of the Catholic Church before it reunited again. You know, when they had three and almost four popes at one time after the split with the East-West. It was teach infidels to wake them up. Yeah, of course you're wasting your time. So if you look throughout European history, it's always been a fight between the civilized and the barbarists. So you look at, for example, I can keep going over and over, right? So you look at 7th and 8th century. I think it's 8th century or 7th century Anglo-Saxon England, and that the Vikings came in under, you know, from the being like descendants of the Danes, and massacred the monasteries. Yeah, Carthage, exactly. Carthage was slightly different. They were sort of two superpowers, but yeah, same sort of topic. They came in and massacred a lot of the Anglos, and then they actually set up camp, and I think it was in northeast England, and they remained until Alfred the Great, right, was able to wipe the floor with them. But then he was such a great guy, supposedly in history, that he made a truce with them. So as long as they became Christian, I think it was, I can't remember. No, as long as they kept to their own, and they promised, okay, true faith, bye, and they promised never to come back into his territory, then they could stay. But then they became sort of civilized, right, over the centuries. So 200 years later, they lost their religion, they became Christian, right? But then they sided and intermingled with the Celts in Brittany and on the north part of France. So then they together formed the Battle of Hastings in 1066, and then wiped out England and took it over, and it became a French colony. But then what happened was they ended up separating from France, and then they took over France. So before France was able to fight back the English, by the end of the 100 Years' War, I think the 100 Years' War started in 1353 and ended in 1453. But it wasn't one war, it was different wars. But 90% of those wars, England won. And France ended up becoming a little pocket of actual France, and all the rest was England, right? So then the only reason it turned around was like right at the end of the 100 years, Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc came in, and she was a schizophrenic cross-dresser. Now, that's how we see her. They saw her as being spoken to by God, but she ended up winning back France. But then she won back France, and then the French turned against the king and had him and his wife beheaded, and then they became ultra left-wing, like radical leftists, and they started murdering all of the priests. But then that caused the rise of Napoleon III. I've skipped a bit of history, who was, you know, the Donald Trump of their time, who then wiped out the fake leftists. But then after that, he died, and then, you know, now they are what they are. So the point is, it's way bigger. It's way bigger than the Islam thing. See, before Islam, we had the Aryan Christians, right? Here's another interesting blowback. So the Aryan Christians, right, did not believe that Jesus was the Son of God, right? So, and then they dominated all of Western Europe, and they were fighting with the Catholics. In fact, most of them were Arian. In fact, all of the Frankish Empire before it turned into France was all was all Arian Christians. Now, Arian Christians are the ancestors of Islam if you look at secular history. When was this? This was when the Vikings had taken over Western Europe before they had dissolved into becoming Catholics. And they only became Catholics because I think Clovis's wife, Clotilda, was a Roman Catholic, and she spent her whole life trying to convert him to Roman Catholicism. It was before 900. It was about 600, 700, because this was the time when Spain was Muslim. So it was Spain was taken over by the Umayyad in 711 AD. So it was between 711. Oh, who cares? Long time. Haha. Yeah. Put you all the university and colleges. Well, what's funny is that if everyone was able to understand all this stuff, they would see it so differently. You would see this as a sinusoidal wave function. This thing, right? Exactly what Slim said the other time, where you had that awesome saying that you humbly admitted wasn't your own. Yeah. But if humans were able to understand it, we could correct for that. So when we see, for example, what people call, some people refer to as the Islamization, which is an illusion. I think it's an illusion, but where did you read this? Dr. Reeves, what I just quoted from you, he's brilliant, and he's one of the only Christian lecturers I'll listen to, because all of his teachings are actually secular, even though he has religious beliefs, which I think was quite amazing. I can send it to you. Yeah, Twitter. I have Gabversity on Twitter, actually. So you can go there. Anyway, so like the history, 50 years in history is the turn of a page. That's one of my sayings. My brother gave me that idea to say that. But 50 years in history is the turn of a page. And we've seen this over and over, right? So the Aryans were, believe it or not, okay. Yeah, absolutely. Say it for me. The Aryans believed that there was only one God and Jesus was his messenger. Does that sound familiar to anybody? Let's see. There was only one God and Jesus was his messenger. That was the Aryan Christians. Isn't this one? Oh, okay. All right. So, anywho, so here's another interesting thing. Now, there's every story I'm telling you has 10 blowback stories, which is a problem because I'm trying to tell you all of them at once, and this is I think this is the problem with my book, is I've got all these freaking crazy stories in there, and then they're sort of loosely joined together. It's more of it's almost like a book of short stories, actually. Now that I think about it, I should say that Speaking Human is a series of short stories about the autist, which have a loose common theme. That's actually a better way of looking at the book. Anyway, so I'll tell you a few of the blowbacks. So in the Eastern Roman Empire, they crushed the Aryans, like completely decimated them from the beginning. Where did they go? Where did the Aryans go? Now, Simon already knows the answer to this. There's a massive lag, so I'll probably tell you the answer. Mecca. The Aryans went to the Middle East and North Africa. That's exactly right, my friends. So they were already primed. They were already primed because their religion was, they were Christians. They were Christians, but their saying was, there is no God but God, and Jesus was his messenger. That's exactly right. Now, the word for Jesus in ancient Arabic was Muhammad. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. All right? The exact saying today of the Islamic Shahada is the Aryan Christian line translated into Arabic. Yes. Okay. That's blowback number one. Blowback number two. In Western Europe, someone just got gabsmacked. In Western Europe, yes, Muhammad means the praised one. That's exactly right. And the prediction of the praised one was coming in the Old Testament, which was referred to They were referring to Jesus, yes. All right. So here's the next one. The next one is in the western half, right, which had collapsed, which was now the Papal States, right? They could not. Trump can be Muhammad. Yeah, everyone should put I am Muhammad. So Trump. In the Western Papal States did not have as much luck crushing the Arians because they were not united. So the Eastern Roman Empire was one monolithic giant, so it could crush them after the Council of Nicaea. But the West did not have that luxury because they were all varying competing states. So what they had to do was they eventually destroyed the Arians, right? But more through conversion than through violence. Well, half-half. All right, but what the Western Roman Church had to do was amend the Nicene Creed. Now, if anyone knows the Nicene Creed, that was created in the Council of Nicaea between 325 and 332. Going too fast for you? So I'm talking about different blowbacks now. So forget that blowback. I don't want to get hooked on the Muslim one because there's a lot more. There's a lot more to this, and you can develop. So why are right people so racist and opposers? You realize that comment is itself racist. That's funny. All right. So with the Western side, the Arians, the Council of Nicaea in Latin, right? Because it was in Greek, obviously, because the Greek Roman Empire was in Greek, right? But they did speak Latin, but predominantly in Greek. But the Western side, they all basically dropped Greek and were speaking Latin, right? And they changed the Nicene Creed to add, and to them it wasn't a change, it was a clarification. They added filioque because of systemic oppression. All right, well, it's such a shame that logic is missing about your brain. Arians, but Aryan Christians. I think you're confusing the two, which is a shame because it's showing that your statements are consistent with a lack of brain function. Which is a really shame because a lot of people with lack of brain function actually have access to guns. It's a shame. This is what I mean about the mental illness problem. We really got to deal with that. That's a much bigger problem than gun control. As much as I don't like guns, but mental illness, big problem. So yeah. Anyway, sorry, I'm trying to stay on topic. So the Latin Church decided to add filioque. Now, filio means son. What's on my head? Hair. And a hat. I'm guessing on your head is a dick. Sorry, I'll hide chat for a bit. Sorry. I just want to see if someone laughed at my last joke. Thank you. Very kind. All right. All right, I'm hiding the chat. So filioque, que in Latin is and the, or also. It would be the equivalent of our also in English. And filio is son, right? Because like filios and filio and fi in French. So they all come from the Latin filio. Now, what happens is in the Nicene Creed, it says the Spirit who proceeds from the Father and the Son. Now, in the Catholic Church, they say the Spirit proceeds from the Father and the Son. Through the Father and the Son, he is worshipped and glorified. It is spoken through the prophets. Right? That is the Nicene Creed in Latin. In Orthodox, it is who proceeds from the Father. The Spirit proceeds from the Father, not the Son. Now, the Greek side, historically, was quite offended at the fact that these rebellious papal states, which should have been still part of the Orthodox Church as far as they're concerned, were adding this extra line. But the Latins had to add that extra line to clarify that the Son was part of the Father. The Arians did not believe that. The Arians believed that the Son was just a prophet, right? So what happened is, that's the other blowback. The other blowback is that it furthered the schism between the East and the West, which led to the ultimate East-West schism in 1054. And that schism in 1054 is what weakened them to the point that it allowed the Turkish 500 years later to take over Eastern Europe. Thank you very much, my friends. Now, if anyone could see the world like that, we would not be having these stupid arguments about this Muslim or this Christian or that. We would see it the way I see it. What is a schism? Sorry. The schism is when the original Orthodox / Catholic Church, one church, they excommunicated each other. And the schism is like a split. So, yeah. So basically it became the Orthodox Church of the East and then the Catholic Church of the West. And then the Catholic Church split as well. It split into the Church of Aquitaine, which was in modern day France. It's a Tool song. When did this happen? The schism happened in 1054 AD. The first crusade happened in 1095, I think. So and then we're going to get into the Crusades, which are completely, like, calling it the Crusades is like calling all of the last wars one war, right? The wars. It doesn't. The First World War, the Second World War, the war in Korea, Afghanistan, and Vietnam are nothing to do with each other, but we call them all the wars, right? And it's what we do with the Crusades. They're nothing related, almost nothing related, right? And people don't understand any of this stuff. They don't realize that after the first schism between the East and West, there were subsequent schisms. So there were schisms in the Orthodox side because of culture and language, but they weren't as official, and now they're sort of huddling together. The first schism, 1054. All right, and then there were subsequent schisms on the Catholic side. So then you ended up having 3 popes, and it took 90 years for them to reconcile. But what happened was, even though they reconciled, the faith in the papacy was undermined, and that allowed in the 15th or 16th century for the Reformation by Martin Luther. So many blowbacks came because of one decision that caused all of these fragmentations over time, and that is what happens, and it'll keep happening. So Europe will fragment, and then it'll become Islamic, but then after 200 years, then they will die down, and then there'll be new barbarians coming from somewhere else, and then they'll have to defend it. It's nothing has changed. Anyway. So I don't know how we got onto this topic, but there you go. I don't know if any of this is a surprise to most people. I just, like, I love everyone. I just find it's going too fast. You believe in gods. I believe that gods are man-made. But they're also real at the same time, because we can feel their effects through men. And when I say men, I mean men. Anyway. Too funny. History just repeats itself. Yes, it does just repeat itself. It repeats itself. And it's, we say that, but we don't realize how brilliantly it repeats itself. It's you could not plan it. Like, if writing human history as a comedy, as a comedy / tragedy, you could not come up with a better one than actual history. And you know what's funny, right? Here's another funny thing. After the Catholic Church split for 90 years, they split for the same reason America's splitting right now, by the way. Yeah. Like, what happened during that 90-year split? Exactly Bush, Obama, Trump. I swear to you, change the names and it's the same story. Change the names. Instead of having cars, you have people walking, and you have horses and knights instead of guns. The same freaking story, right? Anyway, ultimately, what will happen in the US, if it's exactly like what happens, that the faith in the democracy itself will be undermined, which is what's happening now. So now people are going. Council of Nicaea was 4th century. Yeah, it was 325 to 332 AD. So, yeah, there's more stuff I can tell you about that. That's probably the one you're most interested in. But like what did that cause? You said one extra line. The psychology of history. It's an interesting topic. Yeah. I might do it on Gabversity, actually. I should do a simulcast. I might do a simulcast later. We'll do a Gabversity, because I'm going to start going back into language as well. Because that's the other thing. When you learn, like, I mean, I'm very bad in. You guys know I can speak 6 languages, but I'm very bad at them. So I'm not that good at them. I'm fluent in 2 of them and half fluent in the other 2. Yeah. So languages teach you all this stuff I'm telling you, right? It fits, it fits with the languages. You know, like for example, I'll give you an example, right? Like the word door, right? The word, our word in English, door, comes from the Germanic word Tür, right? And that shows you that we had doors before the French invaded England, right? So the Germans, when we were still German in England, had doors, right? But the word beef, right, is cooked cow. Cow is German. Beef is French, which means that the Germans did not cook their meat. They ate it raw, right? And it shows you that the French taught us how to cook. So language also shows you parts of history that you wouldn't know otherwise. I just, that stuff just blows my mind. I love it. I love it. I wish I could just learn all day, every day. Once I get my Patreon people up, I'm gonna stop driving these freaking buses, man. Anyway, so there you go, my friends. I'm gonna have to go soon because I'm gonna have to work on some physics. In Germanic called English, yeah. I did a scope on that months ago. It was called Our Father in English. See you later. Keep spreading truth and knowledge. Oh, thanks, Christopher. That's why I'm a savage eater. I'm German. That's awesome. Oh, no worries. All the best. Anyway, yeah, so I can, you know, I have to go, but we could sit here all day. That confession, the Spirit through Father, when was this? You know what you need to do, Simon? What I'm going to do, I'm going to post I'm going to send you a link to this guy, Dr. Reeves, and he's got probably hundreds of hours of lectures. And I'm telling you, as an atheist, this guy's a Christian, and I don't care. Like, he's not biased. Actually, no, he is biased, but he's aware of it, and he makes it public. I have so much respect for people like that, because we're all biased, right? So the fact that he comes out with it and then overrides it, mad respect. Anyway, I'll send him to you, because he, I want to know when Arians got rejected by Catholics. It was the same time. It was 300 years. Okay, sorry. Let me clarify. So the Arians came to Europe, right? And they were there at the same time as all other Christians, because there was no Council of Nicaea. So as all monotheistic religions do, they fragment. That is their nature, because they don't bend, they break. They're like iron, right? Iron doesn't bend, it breaks unless you heat up the temperature, right? So it's Arian Christianity was around from the beginning. You had the Arians, the Nestorians, the Gnostics. They had the Gospels of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary. And what's funny is that if you read the Quran is based on the Gospel of Thomas. Now, the Gospel of Thomas was hidden by the Arians when they got kicked out of the Council of Nicaea. Guess where? In Mesopotamia, because that was the border of the Roman Empire. So they hid it just outside the border. And those books are almost word for word in Syriac, which is the language I'm teaching, put into Arabic. And there was a Christian book. I'm going to leave this with you, Simon. This is going to blow your mind, right? There was a Christian encyclopedia in Syriac, which was the language of Jesus and the language that I'm learning now, the language of my ancestors, right? It's called the Quran. Quran. Now, Quran in Syriac, right? It's specifically a religious textbook. There's a massive difference, because Arabic at that time did not exist. Arabic is I guess, in a secular interpretation of Arabic, and I speak Arabic fluently, and I can now read and write Syriac, and I agree with it. I think I agree with this to at least 60%. Arabic is a botched up dialect of Syriac, and so it's a mistranslation. So the Quran is actually a massive mistranslation of the Quran, and the Quran was the Aryan Christian book of liturgy of Jesus. Simon is very biased. He's smart, but his ignorance overwhelms his thoughts. Ooh, that's a trigger one. I would say Simon is where I was 15 years ago, because after my auntie and her children were murdered in a terrorist attack, I became anti-Muslim for a long time. But then you get over that and you realize that's the wrong enemy. So he has to go through that, I guess. I think. That's my take on it, but would love to learn about that. Yeah. Look, I love it. See, as an atheist, I'm in love with learning about religion even more, right? And I think you're the same. Yeah. Mm. So anyway, what's interesting, because so I kiss my ass. Anyway, so Islam is good. No, it's not. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's not that simple. That's like saying is shit good? Well, shit is good and bad because dogs eat our shit, right? And then they shit out their shit, and then it keeps going down and down until it becomes fertilizer, and then we eat the vegetables from the fertilizer. So it's not good, it's not bad, it's a tool, right? It can be used for good and for evil. Um, just like many different faiths, just to varying degrees, obviously. What was the speaker called, the one you would send? I think his name was Dr. Reeves. I can't remember his name, but I've got it. It's in my playlist. I'll send it to you. Anyway, so sorry. So in Arabic, the word Quran is not a native Arabic word. It doesn't make any sense. There's no other word in Arabic like that word. Their hair with shit. No way. No way. I didn't know that. There you go. That's hilarious. We dye it with shit today as well. Anyway, but it came off the Christian text called the Quran, and anyway, it's a pretty cool, interesting stuff. But we're starting to get into pseudoscientific territory, so I don't like to go that far. There's a whole book on it. There's a guy called Gabriel Salma. Actually, this one's more for Simon. Simon, there's a book. Actually, this is the book you want. You were just gab smacked. I was. Bose did a gab smacked. He lobbed it right back. The smart ass bastard. I am impressed, my friend. It's good. Anyway, I really have to go. I've said I have to go like a million times. I really have to go. But just for Simon, go to Gabriel Salma, Sawma. Now, I don't recommend this book for anyone who's more, say, objective, because he doesn't have any references. But he speculates how the Quran was translated from Aramaic, mistranslated from Aramaic, from ancient Aramaic, Syriac, into Arabic, and how the Bible was warped and perverted. Yeah, man, I love having you guys here. Every time you come, I know the scope's going to be so much better. So yeah, all right, I'll leave that with you, Simon. So because you can get from that a lot of stuff, like it's just not scientific dogma, if that makes any sense. All right, guys, all the best.